The box was small, just large enough to hold a stack of photographs, a broken wristwatch, and a plastic evidence bag with a cracked Motorola flip phone inside. Long obsolete, its screen dark. It had been tucked behind a panel in the attic of a defunct gas station in Missoula, Montana, found by accident during a renovation project. When contractor Wayne Morrison pulled back the rotting insulation, the box clattered to the floor. Inside was a single label: Evidence, Case 04129D, Vault. Missoula Police Department had no record of a case 04129D, but the moment Detective Cora Willis opened the file and read the scribbled date, August 14th, 2002, something shifted. That was the day 16-year-old Natalie Greer disappeared without a trace. The reopening of the Greer case began quietly. The evidence box was submitted to the forensics lab for restoration. The photographs inside were blurred, sun-bleached and slightly curled, but two showed Natalie, one with her wearing a red corduroy jacket, the other with her beside an old green Chevrolet Blazer that had been missing since the same week she vanished. Both were dated a full 3 days after the last confirmed sighting of her. Natalie Greer had vanished during the last summer before her senior year. At 16, she was quiet, observant, and painfully intelligent. She lived with her father, Tom Greer, a widowed accountant, in a modest home near the Rattlesnake National Recreation Area. The two shared a routine marked by silence and predictability. Natalie had a part-time job shelving books at the public library and took early admission courses at Missoula College. Her future, everyone agreed, would be exceptional. On the evening of August 14th, 2002, she left the library at 6:48 p.m., according to time-stamped security footage. The video showed her exiting the side door, wearing her red jacket, earbuds in, walking west down Spruce Street toward home. She never arrived. When Tom called 911 at 9:13 p.m., he told dispatch she was never late, never off-grid. He'd already checked the library, the few friends she had, and even walked part of the trail she sometimes used to decompress. "Something's wrong," he'd said. "I don't know how I know, I just know." Investigators at the time combed the area with cadaver dogs, drones, and thermal imaging to no avail. No signs of struggle, no witnesses. Her phone was never recovered. Her bank account remained untouched. The green Blazer she occasionally used, her mother's old truck, had disappeared too. Without a single trace of violence or evidence of flight, the case eventually went cold. Foul play was suspected but unconfirmed. No body, no closure. Now, in 2023, with the evidence box in hand, the police turned their attention to the phone. The SIM card, damaged but partially readable, held fragments of text messages. The last sent message, dated August 16th, 2002, 2 days after the disappearance, simply read, "I saw him again. He knows." The recipient was listed as Ash B. No full name, no number traceable in any police logs from the time. Detective Willis dug deeper. Ashley Beringer, Ash, had been a classmate, briefly mentioned in the original case notes. She had never been formally interviewed. According to school records, Ashley had transferred to a private school in Billings just weeks after Natalie vanished. Her family declined all contact at the time. Cora tracked her down in Great Falls, where Ashley, now 37, worked as a veterinary technician. The interview was quiet, tense. When shown the photo of Natalie beside the Chevrolet, Ashley's hand trembled. "That was the day before," she said, "the last time I saw her." She hesitated, then added something that would reshape the narrative entirely. She was scared. Not of running away, of being followed. In the weeks prior to her disappearance, Natalie had confided in Ashley about a man she believed was surveilling her. A man she said wasn't supposed to be in Missoula anymore. No name, no face. Just a car, a black Lincoln Continental with Oregon plates, and a chilling phrase Natalie repeated, "He said I remind him of my mother." That line hit a nerve with Detective Willis. Natalie's mother, Rebecca Greer, had died in 1999 from an accidental overdose, or so the report said. But Rebecca's name appeared in archived records connected to a minor narcotics operation out of Portland, an investigation that was sealed and later abandoned. Among the persons of interest at the time, one Jonathan Kessler, a low-level enforcer with a string of convictions tied to drug trafficking and coercion. Kessler had disappeared in 2001. No known whereabouts since. It took 3 weeks to track down DMV records matching a 1990s Lincoln Continental registered in Oregon, sold in 2002 to an unknown buyer using a forged ID. That ID, later confirmed through fingerprint smudges on the evidence box, belonged to Kessler. The narrative that emerged was fragile, circumstantial, pieced together by timestamps, decayed film, and fragmented memories. But it was enough to secure a warrant for excavation behind the gas station where the box had been hidden. That building, it turned out, had once been a mechanic's garage, and beneath the concrete floor of the storage shed, dogs alerted to a second cavity. Inside was the green Chevrolet Blazer, rusted, suffocated by soil, its license plate intact. The vehicle's contents were protected by the chassis, a canvas bag. Inside it, a cracked notebook, a set of car keys, and a child's Polaroid camera. The final photo on the roll showed Natalie's face, not frightened, not fleeing, but defiant, as if recording something she knew she wouldn't survive. This new find raised a haunting possibility. Natalie might not have died in 2002. She may have lived for days, maybe longer. Long enough to document what happened. Long enough to fear it wouldn't matter. Long enough for someone to ensure it never saw the light of day. The investigation had just begun. The discovery of the Chevrolet Blazer buried beneath the old service shed prompted an official reclassification of the Greer case. What had been considered a cold missing person report was now designated a potential homicide, with post-disappearance activity strongly suggesting confinement, surveillance, or worse. But one question loomed larger than the rest. If Natalie had truly survived beyond the date she vanished, where had she been? And who had kept her hidden? The forensic unit extracted the camera found inside the canvas bag and recovered 4 undeveloped photographs. The last image was the one already circulated, Natalie in a confined, dimly lit space. But the other 3 revealed contextual elements. A wall marked by peeling industrial paint, a small square vent in the background, and a date scrawled in marker across a cardboard box. August 17th, 2002. That was 3 days after she'd last been seen on Spruce Street. Detective Cora Willis cross-referenced city zoning records and found that the gas station had changed ownership just a month after Natalie vanished. The new buyer was a shell company tied to a construction firm that dissolved within 2 years. A forensic accountant was brought in. The paper trail was dense, but one connection repeated. A low-level real estate investor named Marcus Dellon, who had managed several properties in western Montana between 2001 and 2006, including the service station. Dellon had never been interviewed during the initial investigation. When detectives arrived at his current address in Helena, they found a man in his 60s, reclusive, quiet, too quiet. Under questioning, he claimed he'd never met Natalie Greer, had no knowledge of the gas station's previous tenants, and hadn't set foot on the property since 2003. But when asked if he had ever employed a Jonathan Kessler, Dellon's demeanor shifted. "Name doesn't ring a bell," he said. It was a lie. A subpoena of Dellon's 2002 business records revealed one contract, handwritten, unfiled, with the initials J.K., listed as an on-site night repairman for the Spruce Street station. No social security number, no address, just a check endorsement to a now defunct account in Portland and Oregon. Meanwhile, The analysis of the cracked Motorola phone unearthed something else, metadata linked to 2 audio files, both heavily degraded. One of them, once enhanced, revealed only fragments, static, brief pockets of speech, and a male voice repeating, "You don't call anyone, you don't leave." The text confirmed the timestamp, August 16th, 2002. The same day Natalie's last text had been sent, the phone, as confirmed by its GPS history, never left a 2-block radius from the gas station. The trail began to constrict. Detective Willis, with help from digital archivists, tracked down surveillance footage from a grainy 2002 highway camera placed near I-90, a quarter-mile from the station. Though the footage was black and white and low resolution, a match was confirmed. A green Chevrolet Blazer passed westbound at 10:22 p.m. on August 14th, followed precisely 2 minutes later by a black Lincoln Continental with obscured plates. Both vehicles took an off-ramp not leading home. Back in 2002, this detail had never been flagged. The camera's footage was never requested. At this point, pressure mounted within the department. The Greer case became a priority file, and retired Detective Sean Pollard, who had led the original investigation, was brought in for consultation. His notes, long boxed and stored in municipal archives, contained a curious detail, a witness statement from a gas station clerk named Renee Carver. She had worked the night shift on August 15th, the night after Natalie disappeared. Her original statement mentioned a man loitering behind the property's dumpster around midnight, pacing and glancing repeatedly toward the alley. At the time, no link had been made. Her file included a composite sketch, one never publicly released. When placed side by side with a photo of Jonathan Kessler from 2001, the resemblance was chilling. Renee was located in Spokane. Now in her 40s, she recalled the man clearly. He looked like he hadn't slept in days, kept muttering to himself. "I told my boss, but nobody ever followed up." She agreed to re-record her statement. Meanwhile, Natalie's family, particularly her father, Tom, had remained silent since the case's reactivation. When pressed by reporters, he issued a single sentence: "We only want the truth, wherever it leads." What investigators didn't yet know was that the truth was about to walk through their front door. On April 4th, 2023, 2 months after the discovery of the evidence box, a woman entered the Missoula County Sheriff's Office. She wore a faded navy coat and clutched a small canvas duffel. Her face was thinner than the school photos, eyes more sunken, but unmistakable. She said only one sentence to the front desk deputy: "My name is Natalie Greer." Initial shock gave way to a controlled whirlwind: medical attention, psychological evaluation, and most of all, evidence collection. Natalie submitted voluntarily to DNA confirmation, and by the next morning, it was official. She was alive, and she remembered everything. According to her preliminary debriefing, Natalie had been abducted shortly after leaving the library. The man had followed her, not for the first time. He knew her route, her schedule. He drove a black Lincoln. She had seen him once before, outside her school gym in late July. She never told anyone. She didn't want her father to worry. The man had approached her near the alley behind an old dry cleaner. She remembered the rag in his hand, the bitter smell. Then, nothing. She awoke in a room underground, cement walls, a space heater, a cot, a camera pointed toward the bed, and a man's voice through a vent: "Do what I say, and you live." She was kept in that room for nearly 2 weeks. Then, one night, he left. Hours passed. He never returned. She escaped through an unlocked door and ran. Natalie didn't call the police. She didn't go home. She didn't trust anyone. What she did instead was vanish. Not because she wanted to, but because she believed she was being watched, followed, that someone else was involved, someone connected to her mother's past. For 20 years, she moved from town to town, changed her name, worked cash jobs she told no one, until she saw a news report, a story about an evidence box found in a wall, and a missing girl from 2002. She knew it was time, and yet, even with her return, one thing was missing. Jonathan Kessler had never been found. Natalie Greer's reappearance shook Missoula to its core. Within 72 hours of her return, the FBI formally joined the investigation, citing the interstate nature of the abduction, the forensic links to Portland, and the likely involvement of organized criminal elements from 2 decades earlier. The case was now no longer just about one girl's disappearance. It was about unraveling a hidden chain of people who had helped keep her missing. Detective Cora Willis, now leading the Joint Task Force, worked closely with Natalie, piece by piece reconstructing the 11 days she was held. What emerged was chilling. The man, presumed to be Jonathan Kessler, never used his name, never revealed his face fully. He kept the lights dim, the ventilation constant, and the door bolted from the outside. There was one camera, one cot, one vent where his voice came through, no windows. She was only let out once, to use a bathroom down a narrow hallway with linoleum floors and peeling paint. It was the only time she saw anything of the outside world during her captivity. What she remembered most, however, was sound. There was a compressor or pump, some kind of machine that started every few minutes. A deep rumble, she recalled, and a metallic clang every time it shut off. That detail triggered something in Cora's mind. Old zoning documents revealed that beneath the gas station property was a disused boiler system from the 1970s. A maintenance shaft had been sealed off in 1999 after a fire hazard inspection. If the room Natalie described was real, it might still exist beneath the modern concrete overlay. A specialized excavation team was brought in. 3 feet under the foundation, they uncovered a welded access panel. The door, once breached, led to a narrow corridor ending in a reinforced chamber. The smell of rust, oil, and something far older lingered. Inside were the remains of a cot, a steel vent bolted into the wall, and a bracket on the ceiling where the camera had once been fixed. Forensic swabs were collected from every surface. Dried biological material was found beneath the cot. DNA tests confirmed it. Natalie had been there, but there was more. Behind a corroded junction box near the vent, an evidence technician found a magnetic tape cartridge labeled Cycle 06. It was standard issue security recording hardware used in the early 2000s, often linked to closed-circuit television systems. The cartridge had decayed, but the casing had protected the core tape. The FBI's digital recovery team began the delicate work of restoring it. What they found changed the course of the investigation again. Footage duration, 17 minutes. Timestamp, August 22nd, 2002. The video opens in the concrete room. Natalie is seated on the cot, arms wrapped around her knees. Her hair is tangled, face expressionless. A shadow crosses the frame, tall, male, lean. He never looks directly into the camera, but a sliver of his profile is briefly visible in a reflection off the vent. Natalie flinches when he speaks. His voice is calm, deliberate. "You've been quiet," he says, then something unintelligible. Then, "It's not your fault. She made choices." It's unclear who she refers to. Natalie says nothing. The man's hand appears briefly, offering a plastic cup of water. When she doesn't reach for it, he sets it down and leaves. The timestamp ends at 3:14 a.m. Another forensic technician enhances the profile reflection. Facial recognition returns a 72% match with Jonathan Kessler's 1998 mugshot, enough to build a probable cause file. Still, Kessler remained a ghost, until someone broke their silence. An anonymous envelope arrived at the sheriff's department 2 weeks after Natalie's return. No note, no address. Inside, a burned CD-ROM labeled simply Backyard 2003. On it, a series of digital photos showing the exterior of the gas station taken at night from a distance. One frame zooms in on a man unlocking the back entrance. The photo metadata places it in July 2003, almost a year after Natalie escaped. The man is older, thinner, bearded. It's Kessler. For the first time in 20 years, the investigators had proof he'd returned to the scene, long after everyone assumed he'd vanished. But there was another, more disturbing element in the images. In the background, a figure stands watching from behind a fence, obscured, partially hidden by overgrown brush. Zoom enhancement revealed a second face, female, early 30s, wearing a scarf and hood. Natalie, when shown the image, froze. "That's not me," she said, "but I know who it is." She asked to speak alone with Detective Willis. What followed unraveled a private family history the original investigation had never touched. Rebecca Greer, Natalie's mother, had once been part of a short-lived federal witness protection program after turning state's evidence against a Portland-based trafficker in 1995. The trafficker's name was redacted in the files, but Natalie remembered hearing his nickname once, Kess. After entering protection, Rebecca fled with her daughter to Missoula under a new identity. But sometime in 1999, she overdosed, officially ruled accidental. Natalie never believed it. She remembered the man from her early childhood, his car, his voice. The way her mother would lock every window at night. That man, she now realized, had found them again. The implications were staggering. If Kessler had been searching for Rebecca and later turned his attention to Natalie, then this wasn't just a random abduction, it was a vendetta. Worse, someone knew, someone helped him. Cora reviewed the case again, looking for missed associations. In one archived report from 2002, a neighbor named Dorothy Kern had reported seeing a bearded man in a leather coat loitering near the Greer home weeks before the disappearance. Her testimony had been dismissed as inconclusive. When investigators returned to the neighborhood in 2023, they interviewed Dorothy, now in a care facility. She remembered more than anyone expected. "He wasn't alone," she said. "There was a woman too, tall, red scarf, looked just like her mother." But Rebecca was dead, wasn't she? A request was filed to exhume Rebecca Greer's remains. What the coroner found stunned the team. The dental records did not match. The body buried under the name Rebecca Greer was not Natalie's mother. She had faked her death, and now, 21 years later, she might still be alive. The exhumation result hit like a shockwave. The woman buried under the name Rebecca Greer was a Jane Doe, age estimated mid-30s, deceased around the same time Rebecca was declared dead. But it wasn't her. For 21 years, everyone believed Natalie's mother had died of an overdose. But now, there was only one plausible explanation. Rebecca had disappeared on her own terms. It changed the case entirely. Natalie had been abducted by a man who once threatened her mother's life, and possibly with her mother's knowledge. The investigative team now believed Rebecca staged her death to disappear from a second layer of threat, leaving Natalie exposed. The security video showing a woman in a red scarf at the gas station in 2003, nearly a year after the abduction, gained new weight. Was she watching? Had she been complicit, or was she too terrified to intervene? No answers came quickly. Natalie, emotionally fractured but resolute, agreed to a cognitive interview using visual and auditory recall methods. With the help of trauma specialists, she reconstructed a voice, soft-spoken, calculated, and oddly rehearsed. FBI linguistics matched the voice from the old Motorola phone's audio file with an older voicemail message recovered from Portland wiretaps back in 1998. Jonathan Kessler. The pieces were closing in, but the man remained untraceable. Then, In a breakthrough move, digital forensics traced the 2003 surveillance photos metadata to an old HP PhotoSmart camera model. The camera was registered to one name, Janine Sutter, a pseudonym once used by Rebecca Greer under witness protection. A background trace located several DMV entries under that alias in the state of Wyoming. The most recent one dated just 3 months before Natalie's return. It was time a task force quietly deployed to a rural trailer lot outside Kodiak, Wyoming. In the early morning fog, they knocked on a rusted aluminum door. She answered, Rebecca Greer. Her hair was grey, her voice hoarse from years of smoking, but it was her. The woman presumed dead in 1999, the mother who disappeared while her daughter was hunted. Under interrogation, she didn't deny her identity. What she did deny was involvement. "I didn't know he was going after her," she said. "I thought disappearing would protect Natalie. I never imagined he'd find her." But when shown the surveillance photo, the red scarf, the station at night, her silence stretched long. Finally, a whisper. "I thought she was already gone." When asked why she hadn't come forward after Natalie's return made national headlines, she gave no answer. The Justice Department considered charges, obstruction, conspiracy, abandonment. But in the end, the evidence was insufficient to prove her direct role in Natalie's abduction. Legally, she remained a witness. The case against Jonathan Kessler, however, remained open. Despite overwhelming circumstantial evidence, the reflection in the tape, the audio match, the abandoned camera, he was still legally a missing person. No fingerprints, no confirmed location, no current face. A ghost in the system. Natalie testified before a federal grand jury. Her statement, now public, ended with a single line. "I wasn't just lost, I was hidden by everyone who didn't ask why." The investigation formally remains active. A reward for information leading to Kessler's arrest has been posted nationwide. As for Natalie, she now lives under a new identity, away from the glare of media coverage. She refused all interview requests. Her father, Tom Greer, gave only one final statement to the press. "We got her back, but not the years." Some questions will likely never be answered. What Rebecca truly knew? How Kessler evaded justice? Why the system allowed a case like Natalie's to be forgotten for so long? But the last image in the file, one taken by a forensics photographer, now stored in the Missoula PD digital archive, shows the inside of the bunker. Empty, silent, the cot gone, the camera disassembled, a locked room that once held a life suspended in fear. Now, only dust remains.